Hello, I'm Nobby. Just wanted to welcome you to my workshop. Just a quick video. I wanted to share with you a new tool that I've got for the workshop. This was actually sent to me as a gift from one of the viewers to my channel. And it's this. Let me gently take this out of the box here. It's a precision ground cylinder square, which you use mostly combined with your surface plate. It's give you an idea of the measurements of this. It measures diameter is 2 3/8 by about 4.5 inches tall. It's quite a wonderful thing, really. I never thought I'd have one of these for the workshop. I'm doing a bit of research on it to find all the sort of possible uses for it. And I suppose the most important thing is using it as a means of setting up items for marking out and similar things to that. You can obviously check the measuring equipment in your workshop as well, like in machinist square, to check that they are at a perfect right angle. This one is quite an old one here. This is a Moore and Wright engineer square. This is by far the best one I've got, although it's obviously quite old. I bought this a few years ago, and what you can do is set this up against the cylinder square here, and then use the normal method of putting a white card behind here or shining a torch through to make sure you've got no gaps between the blade here. And this one, it is perfect, no problem with it at all. I have also checked some of the others that I have. I've got 2 or 3 quite inexpensive ones that I bought when I first set the workshop up, and they are not absolutely perfect. I think for sort of most things they probably, I guess, will be sort of good enough. But if you were measuring something very critically, then you've really got to have engineer squares that are absolutely perfect. Knowing that this, although it's probably the scruffiest one I've got, is actually very, very accurate indeed. It was suggested to me that when I got this, that obviously I needed to clean it up, because this was covered in either a very thick oil or grease, like a packing grease that was on it, to clean all of that off. And it had a lot of that well, on the top, on this end. I don't think there is a top or bottom to it. This end's still got some of the sort of waxy oil inside here, and on the other end it had a lot more. So I've just cleaned out the worst of it in these little holes here. I've left what was there, and in the hole here. What I did, as suggested, was stoned the ends here on both ends to make sure that they are absolutely flat and there's no marks on them at all. This end was fine, but I did discover on the other end, I did notice that there was a couple of little marks on it, and there may be an explanation for that. But I used my precision ground stones that I've had for a little while now to clean the end here to get any marks off the end. I cleaned all the grease off here with petrol and also with alcohol. The grease has left some staining on here, but using fingers, which is a very sensitive thing, you can rub them along here and there's no raised areas on this at all. I've gone all the way around it, so although this is stained a bit, it's not going to affect it being used for measuring. I've been, as I say, checking the various uses you can put this to for putting materials up against this for marking out. This has a bit of weight to it, so it will stay quite nicely in position. I watched various videos on YouTube on cylinder squares, and there was one by very interesting one, which is really worth watching, by Keith Rucker. And he said that one use he puts one of his cylinder squares to is to level up the milling machine to make sure that the quill of the milling machine is perpendicular to the bed of the mill. And he did that by putting a precision ground rod in a collet chuck and bringing it up against the edge of the square here, so you can adjust it to make sure that that it is parallel to the edge of the cylinder square itself. Obviously a very, very good use for it, but I'm sure there are lots of other things I'll find to be able to use this for as well. This was sent to me through the post, but unfortunately the Royal Mail did their usual trick of dropping it somewhere along the line, I guess, because when I took this out of the packing, it wasn't packed particularly well. The box literally fell apart when I picked it out. The bottom came away, and three of the joints on the corners here just came apart. Only one was sort of reasonably well in place. So I imagine that what had happened is that it's received a knock, and because the cylinder square wasn't packed inside here very well, it probably shot along inside and pushed the end of the box apart. I imagine that's what's happened, because I've had that happen with things sent to me before. There was this sort of grease type packing paper in it, which I can use to wrap the cylinder square in to stop it from getting rusty. And there were some bits of wood in here, which I guess was designed to hold the square in position. This one was loose inside, and this one was glued in, but I've removed that because I want to make some slightly better blocks inside here to hold this in position all the time. Not that it's going to go very far from my workshop, but anyway. One thing I did notice when I took the box completely apart to repair it, I literally stripped it right down. The base was held on with tiny little nails. These little locks here, very old-fashioned types of locks, these were a bit bent, so I've flattened these out, and I've refitted them with slightly nicer screws, quite old ones, slot-headed screws, so that they lock nicely into position now. And I fixed the base on with little brass pins rather than the steel ones that were in it originally, so the box is all nice and secure now. And I glued all the joints here together, the little cone joints, all the way around here, so it's all nice and secure now. But what I did notice when I took this apart, I noticed that on the end of it somebody has scratched a date. It's got AUG for August and 1945. So whether that actually dates the age of this, I don't really know. That may not be when this was bought. I'm wondering whether that's the date that somebody bought the square. Maybe an engineering company took this into stock and scratched the date on it. Also on the box here, it's got a a sort of a letter coding on here, which I've seen many times before on items that have come from engineering companies, where it's their own sort of stock number. So maybe this was, an item held in a tool crib for an engineering company, so that they could keep control over all the items that they'd got, that the engineers would use. I don't really know, but that could possibly age this item. If this was genuinely from 1945, obviously the tail end of the Second World War, items made during the latter part of the war and a little bit after the Second World War had to make do with what materials were available in terms of wood particularly. So it may be that this wasn't perhaps the best quality wood available at the time. I don't really know, unless over the years this has just aged rather badly over the years. But I've had tools before in wooden boxes, which the wooden boxes have been actually beautifully made, but maybe the answer there, I don't know. The cylinder square has also some letters stamped into one end, DFC. If this was made by a tool maker, that could be his initials, although from letter stamps and number stamps that I've seen on things before, they're never, from what I've ever seen, as good as this. I think possibly that these have actually been engraved on the end here, so that might possibly indicate the manufacture of this item, if it was made by an industrial tool maker at the time. I've often seen on lots of things that I've got where the owner of the item scratched his initials on things, which is fairly common to do that if they're kept in a chap's personal toolbox, to stop other people walking off with items, to identify they belong to him. I'm not really sure, but if this is a very old item, I don't know you would ever be able to identify that information on the end there at all. But there we go. So I'm very pleased to have this. It's such a wonderful thing. Not the sort of thing that I would ever expect to own anything like this, really. To be honest, I don't work to the degrees of accuracy that this would give you, really, although I would like to. I mean, I'm normally only working to about 1/1000th of an inch, at the very best 1/2 if I'm lucky. So I'm sure I'm going to find a lot of use for this, because I'm using the surface plate more and more now with a height gauge to mark things out, particularly on the project I'm working on at the moment. So what I have often done in the past is put a couple of 1, 2, 3 blocks on the top here, so that I can hold bits of work against it, to hold it in completely square while I mark things off. So this may do a better job of that for me. So I thought I would share that with you, and I think I did. I believe I may already mention that when I'd cleaned off the oil or wax or whatever was off from here, you've got some staining on here, but it does feel to the sensitivity of your finger to be perfectly smooth. I watched one other YouTube channel also talking about these, and that you should periodically stone these as well, and it is apparently possible to stone this surface as well, gently rubbing the stone round. I don't think I'm going to attempt to do that. I was reasonably happily stoning these ends, but I'm not so sure about these surfaces, which do seem to be perfectly okay anyway. and these marks on the end here are perfect to the surface now, and because this had slight dings which may have been caused by this being rolling around inside this box during the Royal Mail post to me, might have caused them. I don't really know. They do look at sight quite bad, but I'm going to make sure that this is always at the top, and what is the more perfect surface is at the end there. Anyway, I thought you might be interested in seeing that. Obviously quite delighted to own it now, and thank you to the very kind gentleman that spotted this for sale and bought it for me. He said that it was at a bargain price because it was described incorrectly. It wasn't described as a cylinder square. It was described as a sort of a bore measuring tool, which plainly it isn't. But that was to my benefit anyway. So there you go. Well, thank you for joining me in the workshop. Hopefully I'll have another interesting video for you to follow, perhaps my normal weekend one, maybe another bit of my PM Research engine build if I can get some more work done on that. Problem at the moment, it is actually rather cold in the workshop. It's very, very cold out here today actually. I came out here much earlier this morning. It was only 5 degrees, so it was very, very cold. Anyway, well, that's it from me for now, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.